right, let's talk about Kanye West one more time. The political reality we're in and the things we need to do about it has had me thinking a lot about accountability in the last year or so. Why that's such a big weakness for a lot of so-called progressive ideologies and politics. I touched on it in a streaming video a few months back. And really, I started thinking about it a lot way back in this old leftist infighting video. And it's surging back to the forefront of my mind with the recent reemergence of one Kanye, yay, how Hitler, slavery was a choice, West. If you somehow missed it, which includes missing like a dozen videos I've made between my main channel and side channels and all the other shit, Kanye West has had a pretty rocky decade and a half, like the past darn near 15 years. I was just watching something from Justin Hunt, aka the company man, and he pointed out that at this point, Kanye has been on some bullshit literally half his career. My Beautiful Dark Fantasy came out in 2010, which is probably where the fuckery really started, maybe even a year before that because of the whole Taylor Swift weirdness on stage. And yeah, that's 16 years ago. If you want to be generous and say, oh, he didn't really start getting weird till after Watch the Throne and the Confederate flag stuff, which is 2013, sure. But that's still a long time for this man to be doing what he's been doing. For the past damn near 15 years, he's been getting worse and worse, more and more harmful, less and less engaged with and connected to Black people, Black spaces, and Black sensibilities about not just his music, but his behavior, his creative choices. Everything about Kanye West has been awful, and not just anti-Black, but like Black opposing, like not even associated with us as much as he can. And considering who Kanye was at the beginning of his career,
George Bush doesn't care about Black people.
It's all very surreal. And having been there at the beginning, and to be honest, being one of the last of his fans to fully give up on him, having him come back recently feels weird and incomplete. I made 2 long videos about my views on Kanye West and his relationship to hip hop and hip hop culture back in 2022. And while I'm very proud of those videos as pieces of content and like reflections of where I was at the time, I can't help but look back at them with a bit of sadness and maybe naivete, as this was probably the last time I had any hope that Kanye was ever going to be what he was to many of us that he was in the early 2000s. In fact, over the course of the last few years, Kanye has done almost everything he can to make us not just forget that early time period when we first fell in love with him as an artist, but to also have us rethink about what that time period was really about, saying stuff like he was always faking who he was back then.
I'm sorry to all the backpack community. You know, due to the fact that I was from the streets, but I never killed anybody, it was just easier for me to pose like a backpacker. But I actually really love street niggas. I apologize once again to Kweli. I'm sorry, I never fucked with your raps.
My third and likely last main channel Kanye video came out in 2024, and by then Kanye had said and done so much to kill his legacy to the point where a lot of people, at least people with sense, struggle to even appreciate the old Kanye, everyone except for his remaining very weird fan base. What we've been left with is this unhinged, self-hating, hyper-misogynistic, wife-exploiting, porn-addicted, anti-Semitic weirdo who's also committed the ultimate sin any canceled artist could commit beyond all that stuff. He fell off musically. He's not been good at the job that made him famous in the first place for years now, multiple projects. I look at The Life of Pablo as Kanye's last good album, and even that had to grow on me, partially because I heard the original unfinished version when it first came out and threw that shit out a window. Back when we had like CDs, I didn't really throw the shit out the window, but my point is like the shit was trash upon first release, and it was the beginning of a pattern that Kanye still has to this day of releasing unfinished albums and then just patching them shits like, you know, broken video games. I wish YouTube had that option. Do you know how many people have told me that this picture of Paul Robeson is not Oscar Michaud? I'm sorry, y'all. Damn, it fell through the cracks. All right. It's hard. I mean, it's me and like one other person making these shits every 2 months. The main channel joints. All right. I can't take them long ass breaks in between videos like the white folks. I got mouths to feed. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, leave a comment and all that bullshit. Nebula commercial at the end and all that. Ever since T-Lop, everything else has been mid to ass, and his clearly unsettled mind didn't seem to be able to allow him to make anything better, at least consistently. There were still a few amazing melodies here and there, but after alienating all of his best collaborators, such as Rhymefest, who's been gone since T-Lop, Kanye did the only thing that truly causes someone famous to get canceled. He stopped being good. In fact, worse than not being good, he's been downright pathetic for most of the last 2 years. It probably starts with the aforementioned appearance on Drink Champs, which was the last time you saw Kanye on a major black ran media program of any sort. Then he went on a run of right-wing podcasts and rants with random microphones being put in his face by any white person that wanted to hear him say dumb things and like undergird white supremacist talking points so they could giggle as he said exactly what they wanted to say themselves but couldn't because they were white, and then they could act like what was happening wasn't racist because it wasn't them doing it. I hate y'all. I hate this shit so much. Then he had this quick, sad streaming era that a lot of people didn't even realize was happening, where he was running around with Sneeko and other red pill weirdos, also parading his wife around naked, doing this weird cuckolding fetish hot wife thing that he's clearly been into probably since Kim.
I'm a sick fuck, I'm inappropriate. I like hearing stories, I like that whole shit.
If we want to keep it a buck, you know, not the yuck is yum, but it's also like a yum that's trying to be shared with the world, and it's... Brother, The most disgusting thing he did was insulting the children of Beyonce and Jay-Z, calling them a word I won't use in public. I don't know the nature of Beyonce and Jay-Z's children's mental or behavioral health challenges, but that was just fucking awful. And then he followed awful with embarrassing, or maybe it's actually one before the other, with like trying to sneak his way into the Kendrick Drake battle a couple of years ago with a diss track at J. Cole, where like everybody was like, nigga, why are you here? Nobody was talking to you. Nobody even responded to that shit. Shit was sad. And I don't even want to get into the concerning weird stuff about some childhood sex struggle, possibly abuse stuff that he dealt with as a young man. I just don't have a place for that in this video to discuss like what it means that he talked so openly about what were clearly, and then he makes songs of it. Yeah, moving on. The point I'm getting at is that the end result of all of this nonsense that did not include quality music is people just genuinely stopped caring about Kanye West. He spent so much of the past decade being a buffoon and an idiot and purposely doing shocking, outrageous stuff that folks stopped caring. It's one of the few times people actually ignored the trolls. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere at the beginning of this year, Kanye releases a statement. In this statement, Kanye provides validation to a theory that has been out there for some years now, which is that his famed car accident from way back in 2002 left him with an undiagnosed traumatic brain injury that contributes to his bipolar disorder and erratic behavior. Now, this is a theory I once myself believed in before having had others point that the science behind this is not concrete. I'm not a brain scientist, so I'll let you argue that in the comment section. But I know enough to know that bipolar disorder doesn't cause you to make a song called Hi Hitler, right? There's a lot more to Kanye's behavior than it just being a mental health issue. And I'm sorry if that upsets people. It's just the reality of the situation, because a lot of what we see now was evident early in his career, not just right after the accident, but there are people I know personally that know Kanye personally, that knew him before he was Kanye West, that have said he's always been, let's say, a handful. I don't have the monopoly on the truth here, and I'm not saying there's no plausibility in this explanation of the last decade plus of his behavior, and it doesn't matter because unlike most, I don't care why the behavior happened. I just want accountability for the behavior, and to me, accountability is not cancellation. One thing I've come to hate about even my own genre of content is that people have come to mistake the takedown video or the mean tweet or mean comments or getting drugged on the timeline as accountability. And I'm so tired of not just creators, but fan bases who operate in this really dumb, lowbrow, make-believe fantasy world where having the sickest own on somebody in the public square that is social media means that accountability has happened. That ironically is showing the very non-progressive tendencies of many in our audience. It's very much influenced by the Western tradition of carcerality that many of you don't realize that you strongly identify with, believe in, and often want to be the police. Accountability is not punishment, and online with these platforms, punishment is barely real, especially if you're a big enough figure. Instead, accountability is restitution and change, and a lot of y'all don't be wanting that shit. You just want to drag, but I digress. Accountability doesn't guarantee that everyone you've hurt is required to forgive and accept you back. Accountability doesn't mean that you get your spot back in the culture or the industry or wherever you were before you did the transgression that got you removed. It doesn't mean that people can't ever speak on what you did again. And while I find takedown videos and drags online entertaining at times, I know they don't count as accountability, and I need y'all to understand that as well, because if we understood that, Kanye would be doing something different than what he's doing. Well, he probably wouldn't. He wouldn't be doing anything different than what he's doing right now, but I think the grander public response would be different. And I think this is because people would realize that Kanye West, despite his apology, has not actually been accountable for the harm he's done, again, for nearly a decade and a half at this point. He wrote that apology letter late January, and the last lines of the letter were, "I'm not asking for sympathy or a free pass, though I aspire to your forgiveness. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home." And I'm not seeing it. While the behavior has thankfully stopped, it has also stopped before. An apology has been issued, but he's also apologized many times before. And the thing that has not happened yet, that also never happened before, is there's been no restitution. Kanye has simply just gotten back on the road doing concerts and releasing music. I haven't heard or seen anything that sounds like restoring what he did and what he broke and what he destroyed over that last decade and a half. Not an interview, not a song, not a tweet, nothing. Maybe that's not on the horizon. Maybe we need to be patient, but maybe he should do some of that shit before releasing an album or trying to go on tour. And it does bother me that other communities, namely Jewish people, are setting a better standard for accountability than black folks in this situation. Hence the cancellation of a concert that Kanye was supposed to headline in the UK. Again, going back to the Drink Champs interview, that was the last time Kanye has ever talked to us for real in our media spaces. And I want to call this a rare moment of black media discipline that other black media figures like your Charlemagne the Gods and who are the rest of these niggas? I don't be paying attention. That other black media figures like your Charlemagne the Gods or your Joe Budden podcast and whomever else decided in unison that they weren't talking to Kanye till he got his shit together. But I think it's also just that Kanye decided he did not want to talk to black people and did not want to be in a situation where we would ask him important, real, challenging questions about what the fuck he's been doing or was doing at the time. And for him to say, I'm coming to apologize and hold myself accountable, and not have talked to anyone thus far. He ain't even talked to Oprah or Gayle King. Like, somebody needs to sit down and talk to this man and have him say, hey, are you still a Trump supporter? Do you still think slavery was a choice? Why are you parading your wife around naked in public without any sense of like decorum? Why are you bringing out Lauryn Hill and trying to do this whole old Kanye is back thing, which is like nice. Like, I wish I could appreciate that, but I'm at a point where I don't care. I care more about hearing you answer for and address the things that you've destroyed in this process. How are you, Kanye West, going to contribute to fixing a political and hip hop media landscape that you helped mutilate over the last 15 years? Talk to Sway, anyone, to get to the root of this shit before asking me to buy a ticket or listen to an album. I'm not. And when I say I'm not, it's not even on some accountability shit. Ironically, I'm saying as a former fan who's been here with you before plenty of times and just doesn't care. I've moved on to other shit. I don't care about anything you're making right now until I see a reason, something within you to engage sincerely. I need to see that effort you alluded to in the apology letter. I need you to explain why you should be allowed to come home. I've heard Kanye wrote letters and apologized to the likes of Jay-Z and his real former friends in the industry, and that's good, and I don't have an issue with that being between them. But for me, and I think for a lot of people that saw this start-stop behavior before, who have been terrorized by the ghost of your memory still living within hip-hop and cultural discourse for all this time, I'm gonna need you to sit in someone's chair and address the shit. I'm gonna need to see you put money where your mouth is. You said the black community stood by you this whole time. You said that unprovoked in that letter. Prove the shit. How are you restoring stuff with us right now?
Let's talk about today's sponsor, Nebula. For those who don't know, Nebula is an independent streaming service that houses content for some of YouTube's most prominent and talented creators, but you're also getting a lot more independent content there as well these days. Docuseries, reality shows, travel shows, even narrative podcasts, along with stuff I can't talk about and stuff that I can talk about, like my own short-form documentary on whiteness. You get access to all of this countless hours of exclusive content by signing up for Nebula. And in doing so, you're helping one of the only independent streaming services not owned by some mega corporation or conglomerate that's willing to host the type of content that we really need in the world right now. Because we are creator owned, we come to you directly for your support. So help out, click the link in the description or look for the QR code on the screen to sign up for Nebula today. Thank you to Nebula for sponsoring the video.
I'm FD Signifier, and this has been Light Work.